A series of footage in southwestern India shows roads and homes immersed in water.
The poor region was severely hit by torrential rain. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines. Super Typhoon Hinamnor has entered the Philippine area of responsibility Wednesday afternoon. NDRRMC directs local counterparts to prepare. The Department of Health encourages the public to avail of booster shot, as it also reminded them that it's still too soon to abandon mask mandate. The Philippines is open to a joint oil and gas exploration with China on the West Philippine Sea. But the DFA said some issues must be resolved first. Former Russian leader Mikhail Gorbachev dies at 91. And Russia shuts major gas pipeline to Europe anew. Super Typhoon Hinamnor has already entered the Philippine area of responsibility. According to the 5 p.m. bulletin of State Weather Bureau Pagasa, it was given a local name Henry. Henry's location is at 980 kilometers northeast of extreme northern Luzon, with maximum sustained winds of 195 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 240 kilometers per hour. The extent of its winds is strong to typhoon force. Winds extend outwards up to 270 kilometers from the center. It is moving west-southwestward at 30 kilometers per hour. Today through tomorrow evening, the super typhoon is forecast to decelerate while tracking generally west-southwestward or southwestward over the sea-southeast of the Ryukyu Islands. Henry may reach a peak intensity of 205 kilometers per hour within 24 hours before gradually weakening as it enters its quasi-stationary phase. This tropical cyclone may be downgraded to typhoon category by Friday afternoon or evening.
The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council ordered its regional counterparts in northern Luzon to prepare for flooding, landslides, and other possible effects of a super typhoon with an international name, Hinamnor. NDRRMC spokesperson Rafi Alejandro said the council has issued a general directive to all chairpersons of regional DRRMCs and Office of Civil Defense regional directors in Ilocos, Cagayan Valley, and Cordillera Administrative Region to prepare in connection with the current weather system affecting the country. Alejandro said RDDRM officials and OCD directors in the affected regions were told to closely monitor weather warnings and other advisories issued by the State Weather Bureau and other surveillance agencies. Moreover, initiation of pre-disaster risk assessment at the regional level as needed has been encouraged. The NDRRMC spokesperson also advised regional officials to strengthen risk communication and localize the warning to communities within their areas of responsibility. Gardo and Henry have had no direct impact on the country so far, although they might induce southwest monsoon or habagat rains, according to Pagasa. Northern Luzon has yet to fully recover from the devastating effects of Typhoon Florita in early August and a magnitude 7.0 earthquake in July.
The country's COVID-19 infections continue with its downward trend. As of 3 p.m. today, the country has logged 26,168 active cases. Of these numbers, 8,380 are asymptomatic, 13,607 are experiencing mild symptoms, 406 patients are experiencing severe cases, and 198 are in critical cases. The country has a total number of 3,837,743 cases, and 3,790,793 patients have recovered. 61,773 died of the virus, while 39,247 are counted as repatriates.
The Department of Health encourages the public to take a booster shot as immunity from COVID-19 vaccine is waning. Madeline Villar Moratillo reports.
The Department of Health has admitted that the immunity from the COVID-19 vaccines is declining for more than a year since the government started its vaccination program against COVID-19. More than 72 million of the individuals are fully vaccinated, or 92.80% of the target population for inoculation. With the number 17.8 million have availed of booster shots, or more than 50% are still not boosted. Department of Health OIC Maria Rosario Vergere encourages the public to get boosted for more protection against the virus infection.
Sana lahat may first booster shot para mas tumaas pa po ang immunity ng ating population. Meron na tayong mga pag-aaral na lumabas, even in other countries, na ito talagang first booster shot could up your immunity up to 85% pagka nawawala na immunity mo because of your primary series of vaccination. So ito po yung talagang pinapaulit-ulit natin sa ating mga kababayan, lalong-lalo na ngayon po, baka dumating tayo sa panahon na tataas uli ang pagkaka-ospital kung hindi po tayo mag-receive nitong first booster shot natin.
Vergere said the immunity from the vaccine is declining. She said 50% of the current severe cases of COVID-19 are all vaccinated.
Yung ating mga admissions na nakita natin, yung picture ng admissions, profile ng admissions, dati pag tinignan natin, almost 70 to 80% of those admitted with severe infections are unvaccinated. Ngayon nakita natin na halos 50-50 na ang ating figures. 50% na bakunado, 50% na hindi bakunado. So by saying that and by looking at that, nakikita natin na mukhang this is an assumption, of course. Kailangan natin ng ebidensya for this. But this might spell or give us that warning that immunity really is waning.
A DOH survey shows that some of the reasons for the decrease in the number of those people getting vaccinated include confidence in the primary series of vaccines, while other seniors are afraid that it might have an impact in their health, and others say they don't need it anymore for their work. Despite the decrease in the new COVID-19 cases in the country, Vergere said their projection of 6,000 to 9,000 daily cases at the end of September remains.
Meron tayong ginagamit na mga scientific assumptions. So ito pong mga assumptions na to, katulad nung compliance to minimum public health standards, rate of vaccination, yun pong mga edad na nakakaapekto, yung mga vulnerable groups at iba pa. And we always say that these projections are not cast in stone. Kapag na-comply natin yung mga sinabi sa assumptions and therefore hindi mangyayari ang projections. Pag hindi natin na-comply, maaari na mangyari ang projections. Our last projections were done in August 13. So ito pong August 13 na projections, dito po natin nailagay na maaari magkaroon tayo ng mga daily cases of 6,000 to 9,000 cases by the end of September.
To strengthen the vaccination effort of the government, the DOH plans to conduct a week-long special vaccination in September. Vergere said that the health department is closely coordinating with the local government units and their regional offices to lay down its plan. Madeline Villar Moratillo reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Health said Wednesday it is not yet time to ditch face masks after the Cebu City government issued an order making the use of masks voluntary in most places. Cebu City Mayor Michael Rama signed an executive order making the wearing of face masks a voluntary act within the city, except in hospitals, clinics, and other medical facilities. Meanwhile, Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire, officer in charge of the DOH, said the agency was not consulted about the lifting of the mandatory face mask rule, as she stressed the need for a one-nation approach against the ongoing pandemic. Vergeire added that a city within a country cannot act on its own, a city practicing its own health protocol while the rest of the country is implementing the other side of protocol. Moreover, the health official noted that using face masks reduces the risk of contracting COVID-19 by between 70 and 80%. Vergeire warned against complacency and reiterated the need to follow public health safeguards even as the number of COVID-19 cases continued to decline. The health official also reminded everyone that wearing masks is just a small sacrifice to protect ourselves and even our family members from COVID-19. Soon, time will come that masks can be removed as Filipino people are already protected with the vaccines given to different communities.
The Department of Foreign Affairs said it is open to resume its joint oil and gas exploration with China in the West Philippine Sea. But the DFA said significant legal issues must be addressed first before reconsidering the joint oil exploration. Moira Encina reports.
There are significant legal issues to consider before pursuing the joint oil and gas exploration between the Philippines and China in the West Philippine Sea. This was the reaction of the Department of Foreign Affairs to the statement made by former Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Liu Jianchao, hoping that the Marcos administration will consider the joint exploration in the area. Jianchao is the current minister of the International Department of China's Central Committee of the Communist Party. He is in the country for a 3-day working visit where he met with Lakas CMD Party President and House Speaker Martin Romualdez, Senate Majority Leader and PDP Laban Chair Coco Pimentel, and other members of Congress. DFA spokesperson Maria Teresita Daza said the department acknowledges Jianchao's recognition of these legal issues before pursuing the activity. As always, Daza said the DFA is guided by the Constitution with regards to the exploration, development, and utilization of the natural resources within the exclusive economic zone, continental shelf, and sovereignty of the country. The DFA also welcomed the Department of Energy's designation of former Supreme Court Chief Justices Artemio Panganiban and Renato Puno as co-chairs of the Law and Energy Advisory Panel to supervise in the legal process of the joint exploration. Moira Encina reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Commission on Appointments has approved the nomination of Ambassador Antonio Manuel Lagdameo as the country's permanent representative to the United Nations and Ambassador Jose Manuel Romualdez as the country's head of missions to the United States. Mian Corvera has the story.
The powerful Commission on Appointments has approved the nomination of Ambassador Antonio Manuel Lagdameo as permanent representative to the United Nations and Ambassador Jose Romualdez as Philippine Ambassador to the United States. Before approving their appointments, the officials questioned what steps are being taken to clear the name of the Philippines in the international community. Sagip Party List Representative Rodante Marcoleta said other countries see the Philippines as a human rights violator as a result of the alleged extrajudicial killings that happened under the war on drugs of the Duterte administration.
We will also be able to articulate our position that our courts are functioning in this country and that because the courts are ready and are able to function, the complementary nature of the ICC will only apply in the absence of this.
Ambassador Lagdameo was also asked about the possibility of the country reinstating its membership in the International Criminal Court. But the envoy said the ICC issue would be left to the president, although they are working on the measure to change the country's negative image abroad.
We will exert all efforts to bring to the attention of the world at large and especially this Human Rights Commission in New York. Also, the true circumstances prevailing, because as we are aware, there has been quite a bit of, I would say, misrepresentation or exaggeration of some of the so-called violations from our side, from the Philippine side.
Senator Alan Peter Cayetano blamed former Senator Leila de Lima for the country's negative image abroad because she changed definition of killings by labeling it as extrajudicial killings, which he hopes the envoy to correct. Based on statistics, he said more were killed during Aquino administration.
Sinisiraan yung bansa natin na para bang pagka polis, wala nang ginawang tama, papatayin na lang. Pagka Duterte, papatayin na lang lahat. So we have to set the record straight. May pagkakamali yung ibang mga polis and they're facing prosecution now. Meron po talagang human rights violation din po yung mga drug lords na ayaw naman i-bring up. Meron talagang change of definition. I'm surprised that she doesn't know about this, but I'm not accusing Senator De Lima of that. That's a fact.
Meanwhile, the CA deferred the confirmation on the nomination of Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo since many lawmakers wanted to question him. During the confirmation hearing, Senator Amy Marcos, chairman of the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs, and Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri asked Manalo why he is not attending the organizational meeting called by the Senate.
Just like to reiterate the importance of being able to attend the committee hearing of the Committee on Foreign Affairs. We will stress that to all our colleagues in the executive, particularly the cabinet members. Kayo na lang po ang kulang. I know, as you said, you're busy, but we're also very busy. And we're a co-equal branch of government. Remember that, sir, your honors. And so, budget hearing is also coming soon. So we will be deliberating on how to defend your budget, but we cannot deliberate on how to defend your budget if you do not approach Congress and the Senate, if we don't know what your plans and programs are during these organizational meetings.
Mayan Corvera, formata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippines tops the list of countries with high cases of online sexual exploitation of children, or OSEC. And to make the public understand what the victims of OSEC are going through, the International Justice Mission, or IJM, will release a podcast series in collaboration with Australia's Cadence to convey the story of Ruby, not her real name. Cez Alvarez will tell us more.
The International Justice Mission, or IJM, is set to launch an immersive podcast series produced by Cadence to tackle online sexual exploitation of children, or OSEC. Entitled The Fight of My Life, Finding Ruby is a 6-part series about a 16-year-old Ruby who have been a victim of the online sexual exploitation of children. Ruby, not her real name, will walk us through from her rural home in the Philippines to enslavement in an online sex trafficking den and then into the light of justice. Last August 25, IJM hosted an event where Ruby and Rich Thompson, podcast host and creative director of Australian agency Cadence, shared about their journey creating the podcast. Social media influencers led by IJM Ambassador Amanda Griffin-Jacob have pledged support to this global awareness effort. Recently, the Marcos administration has declared a war against online sexual exploitation of children, amid reports that the country has been in the global hotspot for the crime. IJM-led study looked into global law enforcement data from 2010 to 2011 and found the Philippines had 8 times more reported cases than any other country. Cheap internet access, high levels of English language proficiency, and financial disparity between foreign remote offenders and local traffickers are believed to be key factors driving the proliferation of the crime. The victims' biological parents perpetrated 40% of online sexual exploitations of children, while 42% accounted to other relatives, family friends, or neighbors. Since 2011, the Philippine authorities have conducted at least 269 operations, resulting in the rescue of 990 victims and at-risk children, with 311 suspects arrested and the conviction of 146 perpetrators. The first 2 episodes of Finding Ruby will be publicly released on September 5, but advanced access can be organized upon request. Cez Alvarez, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, last Soviet leader Gorbachev dies at 91. United Nations appeals for $160 million to help victims of Pakistan floods. And Russia halts gas deliveries to Europe again. Learn more about these stories when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Unahang eksklusibong panayam kay Senador Robin Hood Padilla matapos mahalan.
Lahat ng katangian para hindi ako iboto, nasa akin na.
Sasagutin punto por punto ang mga isyong binabato sa kanya.
Committee ng Revision ng Constitution. Anong balak mo doon?
Aalamin, uusisain, walang preno.
How true is this? Hindi ka inendorso ng iyong pamangkin.
Kasama si Attorney Sal Panedo sa Counterpoint tuwing Miyerkules alas 10:30 ng gabi dito sa Net 25.
This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Mikhail Gorbachev, the last leader of the Soviet Union, has died in Moscow at 91. Quoted by Russian news agencies, the Central Clinical Hospital in Moscow says Mikhail Sergeyevich Gorbachev died Tuesday evening after a serious and long illness. In power between 1985 and 1991 and helped to bring U.S.-Soviet relations out of a deep freeze, Gorbachev was the last surviving Cold War leader. He spent much of the last 2 decades on the political periphery, intermittently calling for the Kremlin and the White House to mend ties as tensions soared to Cold War levels since Russia annexed Crimea in 2014 and launched an offensive in Ukraine earlier this year. Gorbachev spent the twilight years of his life in and out of hospital with increasingly fragile health and observed self-quarantine during the pandemic as a precaution against the coronavirus. Gorbachev was remembered fondly in the West, where he was referred to affectionately by the nickname Gorby and was best known for diffusing U.S.-Soviet nuclear tensions in the 1980s, as well as bringing Eastern Europe out from behind the Iron Curtain. He won a Nobel Peace Prize in 1990 for negotiating a historic nuclear arms pact with U.S. leader Ronald Reagan, and his decision to withhold the Soviet army when the Berlin Wall fell a year earlier was seen as key to preserving Cold War peace. He was also championed in the West for spearheading reforms to achieve transparency and greater public discussion that hastened the breakup of the Soviet Empire.
China praised Mikhail Gorbachev for his part in improving ties between Beijing and Moscow in the 1980s and the 1990s following the death of the Soviet Union's last leader.
曾经为推动中苏关系正常化做出积极贡献，我们对他病逝表示哀悼，向他的家属表示慰问。
纳州共和党籍州长杜西抵台访问，他将会见蔡英文。
Gorbachev led the Soviet Union during a period of thawing relations between Beijing and Moscow. After decades of tensions, over ideological differences and competing geopolitical interests. China's communist leadership watched Gorbachev's reforms of the Soviet Union in the 1980s with caution. It ultimately violently quashed the mass protests in Beijing's Tiananmen Square, which coincided with a visit by Gorbachev to the capital. Chinese President Xi Jinping has pointed to the collapse of the Soviet Union under Gorbachev's watch as the cautionary tale. According to leaked comments published by Chinese commentator Gao Yu in 2013, Xi reportedly blamed the fall of the Soviet Union on a lack of real men willing to defend the system.
Russia has completely halted gas supplies to Europe via a major pipeline, saying routine maintenance is needed. Gazprom, the Russian state-owned energy giant, said the restrictions on the Nord Stream 1 pipeline would last for the next 3 days. Though Russia has already significantly reduced gas exports via the pipeline, it shuns accusations of using energy supplies as a way to punish Western nations for imposing sanctions over the invasion of Ukraine. The Nord Stream 1 pipeline stretches 1,200 kilometers under the Baltic Sea and can send a maximum of 170 cubic meters of gas per day from Russia to Germany. European leaders fear Moscow could extend the outage in an attempt to drive up gas prices, which have already risen by 400%. The sharp rise threatens to craft a cost of living crisis over the winter months, potentially forcing governments to spend billions to ease the burden. Yesterday, French Energy Minister Transition Minister Agnès Pannier-Runacher accused Russia of using gas as a weapon of war. However, Russian President Vladimir Putin's spokesman has refuted the accusations and asserted that Western sanctions have caused interruptions due to sanctions made by the West. The most recent controversy has been over a turbine that arrived in Germany after being repaired in Canada and which Russia refused to take back, contending it was subject to the Western sanctions. Meanwhile, Gazprom also notified ENGIE of a total suspension of gas supplies from September 1 until the full receipt of the financial sums due for the deliveries. France's ENGIE declined to comment on Gazprom's announcement when contacted by AFP News.
A UN-chartered ship loaded with Ukrainian wheat destined for millions at risk of starvation in Ethiopia arrives in Djibouti. Carrying 23,000 tons of grain, the bulk carrier MV Brave Commander docked in the Horn of Africa port city 2 weeks after leaving a Black Sea port in Ukraine. A UN's World Food Program says food insecurity and malnutrition are major concerns across Ethiopia. An estimated 20.4 million people are in need of food support. Exports of grains and other foodstuff and fertilizers from 3 Black Sea ports resumed at the start of this month under a deal between Kyiv and Moscow that was brokered by the UN and Turkey in July. Regional Director of WFP East Africa, Mike Dunford, says how big of an impact this shipment makes.
The food on the Brave Commander will feed 1.5 million people for 1 month in Ethiopia. So this makes a very big impact for those people who currently have nothing, and now WFP will be able to provide them with their basic needs. We've already seen a reduction of 15% in wheat prices globally since the Black Sea Initiative commenced. What we want to see is more food flowing. We need, from WFP's perspective, millions of tons in this region. In Ethiopia alone, 3/4 of everything that we used to distribute originated from Ukraine and Russia.
The United Nations and the Pakistani government have launched an emergency appeal for $160 million to help those hit hardest by the floods devastating the country now. The UN says funds will provide 5.2 million of the worst affected and most vulnerable people with food, clean water, sanitation, emergency education, protection, and health support. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls the disaster a colossal crisis. Guterres says Pakistan is awash in suffering. He says the Pakistani people face a monsoon on steroids, the relentless impact of epochal levels of rain and flooding. The aid, covering the initial 6 months of the crisis response, will help avoid outbreaks of diseases such as cholera. It will also provide nutrition aid to young children and their mothers. The aid will provide assistance to refugees and facilitate schemes to reunite families separated by the disaster.
The plan focuses on 3 key objectives. First, delivering life-saving and livelihood assistance such as health services, food, clean water and shelter, complementing the government's response. Secondly, prevent large outbreaks of communicable diseases such as cholera and assist small children and their mothers with nutrition. And third, making sure that people can access assistance and protection in a way that is both safe and dignified, including family tracing.
Life was thrown out of gear in the southwestern Indian city of Ramanagara in the Karnataka state. Heavy rains lashed the district. Roads and homes are submerged. People are left stranded. Residents and business owners, most of whom have never experienced flooding like this, say they have lost everything and food is hard to find.
In other news, U.S. President Joe Biden denounces Republican attacks on the integrity of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and an upsurge in threats against the agency 3 weeks after it raided the Florida residence of former President Donald Trump.
Now it's sickening to see the new attacks on the FBI, threatening the life of law enforcement agents and their families for simply carrying out the law and doing their job. Look, I want to say this as clear as I can. There's no place in this country, no place, for endangering the lives of law enforcement. No place. None, never, period. I'm opposed to defunding the police. I'm also opposed to defunding the FBI.
Federal law enforcement organization came under a barrage of criticism in right-wing circles after agents searched Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort for government secrets in early August and was attacked by an armed man at its Cincinnati office in the following days.
Relatives of the disappeared in Mexico marched on denouncing the ineffectiveness of the authorities to find their loved ones during the commemoration of the International Day of the Victims of Forced Disappearance, a crime that seriously impacts the country.
La intención es dar a conocer que nuestras hijas todavía están desaparecidas y que exigimos que se
Carrying large banners and numerous photos of their missing relatives, the demonstrators marched along the central Paseo de la Reforma, demanding, with slogans and chants, concrete actions from the authorities. From 1964 to date, Mexico counts more than 105,000 missing and unlocated people, according to data from the National Registry of Disappeared Persons. But search collectives and activists believe that the figure is much higher since some families do not report to the prosecutor's offices out of fear or distrust. The efforts of the current government to confront this crisis, such as the creation of a general law on disappearances and the formation of national search commissions, have been recognized by organizations such as the UN. However, relatives of the victims insist that efforts must be redoubled.
Very much. Let's take a question.
Up next, WHO says human-to-human monkeypox transmission might be eliminated in Europe. And 95 respirators no longer in medical device shortage list in U.S. And G20 ministers meet to seek solution to climate crisis. Stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will be back.
sa aming bagong tahanan. Say hi, tayo.
Hi! Bossing Poleng, meron akong kwento.
Yes.
Yay! Story time!
Itago nyo na lang ako sa pangalang Jojo.
Jojo nga po pala. Boyfriend ko.
Good evening po. Ikaw!
Kuya ko nga dyan!
May bago tayong tambayan.
Dito lang sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's get together sa Net 25.
This portion is brought to you by Source Alliance.
Welcome back to Matanang Agila International. The World Health Organization Regional Director for Europe, Dr. Hans-Henry P. Kluge, comments on encouraging early signs showing that the monkeypox outbreak is slowing in some European countries.
We believe very much. Let's take a question.
Dr. Kluge says sustained human-to-human transmission of monkeypox in the region can be eliminated, but commitment to doing so is key.
There are encouraging early signs, as evidenced in France, Germany, Portugal, Spain, the United Kingdom, and other countries, that the outbreak may be slowing. To move towards elimination in our region, we need to urgently step up our efforts. Yet we believe we can eliminate sustained human-to-human transmission of monkeypox in the region if we commit to doing so and put the needed resources towards that end.
Very much both. Let's take a question.
There are enough N95 respirators now in the United States as the demand for this medical device no longer exceeds its supply. Rosel Feria has the details.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, announces that N95 respirators have been removed from the agency's medical device shortage list. The FDA says the demand or projected demand for this type of face protection device, commonly used in healthcare settings, no longer exceeds the supply. The health agency attributes the removal to the increase in domestic manufacturing of N95 respirators. The FDA also says updates to the FDA supply chain assessment based on engagement with industry and federal stakeholders have been made. Plus, the CDC's National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health has approved new disposable N95s and reusable respirators. The FDA Center for Devices and Radiological Health's Office of Strategic Partnership and Technology Innovation says the national capacity for production of high-quality, single-use respirators is stronger and that the country's supply chain is more resilient. During the pandemic, respirators were one of the first medical devices identified as being in critical shortage. The FDA is required by law to maintain a device shortage list to provide transparency to the American public, particularly those who use or purchase medical devices. Rosel Feria, Washington, D.C., Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A porpoise found stranded on a Swedish beach died of bird flu. This is the first time the virus has been detected in a porpoise, Sweden's National Veterinary Institute said Wednesday. Veterinarian Elina Thorsson said it is likely the porpoise came into contact with infected birds. The young male was found stranded, alive, on a beach in western Sweden. Despite efforts from the public to get it to swim out to deeper waters, it was suffering from exhaustion and died the same evening. The bird flu virus, H5N1, was found in several of its organs. The institute said the virus was also detected in other mammals, including red foxes, otters, lynxes, and skunks. Europe and North America are currently seeing a vast outbreak of bird flu among wild birds. Ministers and high-ranking officials from around the world attend the G20 Environment and Climate ministerial meeting in Bali, Indonesia.
Even as we are gathered on this beautiful island, we cannot hide from the fact that the world is facing increasingly compounding challenges such as population growth, water crisis, resource scarcity, energy insecurity, as well as environmental degradation.
Indonesia's Environment Minister Siti Nurbaya urged fellow environment ministers to safeguard environmental multilateralism and to make it work, as it is the only way to effectively coordinate efforts to tackle global challenges. Italy's climate envoy Alessandro Modiano reiterated in a speech that war was having grave consequences on the environment, food and energy security, as well as on the pandemic recovery efforts and pursuit of sustainable development goals. Signs of climate change have become glaring in recent years. Watchdogs said most disasters these days were classified as hydrometeorological disasters, which are strongly influenced by climatic conditions. In their closed-door meetings, the environmental ministers plan to increase efforts to control climate change and prevent a 1.5 degrees Celsius rise in global temperatures. It is expected that the ministers will produce a joint pact in line with the Paris Agreement, tackling 3 priority issues on sustainable recovery, land-based and ocean-based climate action, as well as resource mobilization.
The UN appeals for the last $14 million needed to try and prevent a stricken oil tanker from triggering a disaster off Yemen that could cost $20 billion to clean up. The decaying 45-year-old FSO Safer has not been serviced since Yemen was plunged into civil war more than 7 years ago. The Safer has long been used as a floating storage platform and is now abandoned off the rebel-held Yemeni port of Hodeidah. If it breaks up, it could unleash a potentially catastrophic spill in the Red Sea. According to the United Nations, the Safer contains 4 times the amount of oil that was spilled by the 1989 Exxon Valdez disaster, one of the world's worst ecological catastrophes. The ship contains 1.1 million barrels of oil, which the UN believed could destroy ecosystems, shut down the fishing industry, and close the lifeline Hodeidah port for 6 months. Russell Geeky, communications advisor for the UN resident and humanitarian coordinator in Yemen, expressed concern over the impending catastrophe.
We're deeply concerned. The FSO Safer continues to decay and could break up or explode at any time. The volatile currents and strong winds from October to December will only increase the risk of disaster. If we don't act, the ship will eventually break apart and the catastrophe will happen. It's not a question of if, but when. The result would potentially be the 5th largest oil spill from a tanker in history. It would unleash an environmental, humanitarian, and economic catastrophe.
Geeky says the Safer is unusable or is fit only for scrappage and nothing on it works. Geeky warns it is a ticking time bomb. Up next, eurozone inflation surges to record high 9.1% in August. Defending champion Radukanu crashes out in U.S. Open first round. And Asean Excellence Achievers Awards 2022 recognizes Net25 for its outstanding contributions. Don't go away. We will be back with more news.
Heroes come in all forms. At para sa ating mga bida ngayong gabi, iba't iba man ang paraan nila ng pagtulong, iisa pa rin ang puso nila. Ihanda na ang kubyertos at panoorin ang kwento ng Boy Kanin.
Yung boy kanin, binabanggit pa lang, ngumingiti na yung mga tao eh.
Total package eh. Nandun na lahat eh. Ang hahanapin mo, the typical Filipino food.
Sa gitna ng matinding pagsubok na to, sumulpot ang isang bida. Paano kaya niya naisalba ang mga empleyado, pati na ang kanyang negosyo? Halina silipin ang hot property ngayon sa mundo ng installation art. Alamin natin ang naging kwento ni Lolo at ni Dr. Sherwin Enriquez, ang ating Be The Best of the Week.
Paano po kayo pupunta doon?
Lalakad nga.
Papunta Maynila po? Sabay na kayo sa akin, Tay. Alam ko kung gaano kasaya yung pakiramdam na may tutulong sa'yo sa mga panahong walang-wala ka.
Muli, ako po ang inyong host, Aga Mulak, na lagi nagpapaalala sa inyo, you can be the hero that someone needs.
The eurozone inflation rate hit a new record of 9.1% in August, the EU Statistics Agency said, increasing pressure on the European Central Bank to hike interest rates. Driven by soaring fuel prices caused by Russia and Ukraine conflict, the yearly inflation rate in the 19 countries single currency area is up from 8.9% in July and at its highest since records began. Inflation continues to hit new records just as the European Central Bank mulls another large interest rate hike for next month.
Tehran has officially approved the use of cryptocurrency for imports instead of the US dollar and the euro. Minister of Industry, Mines and Trade Reza Fatemi Amin said that. All the issues related to crypto assets, including how to provide fuel and energy and how to assign and grant licenses, were devised, the minister announced. Earlier this month, Iran made its first official import order using cryptocurrency worth $10 million. It was a test run for allowing the country to trade through digital assets that bypass the U.S. sanctions regime. The use of crypto will also allow trade with other countries under U.S. restrictions. It is expected that by the end of September, the use of cryptocurrencies and smart contracts in Iran will be widely used in foreign trade.
Toyota said it will ramp up the production of batteries for electric vehicles in Japan and the United States through an investment of up to 730 billion yen or $5.3 billion. With this investment, Toyota intends to increase its combined battery production capacity in Japan and the United States by up to 40 gigawatt hours, the company said in a statement. Part of the cash is included in a huge $2 trillion budget for the development and production of auto batteries that was announced by the Japanese giant in December, a spokesman said. Automakers are speeding up the transition to electric as pressure grows from governments to move away from cars with combustion engines, and also thanks to the success of Elon Musk's Tesla. Toyota is the world's top-selling car maker and has championed hybrid motors and pioneered hydrogen as a fuel for the future.
Defending champion Eugenie Radukanu of Britain was sent crashing out of the U.S. Open in the first round, losing in straight sets to France's Alizé Cornet. 11th seed Radukanu became only the third women's defending champion in history to lose in the first round as Cornet crafted a scintillating performance to seal a deserved victory at Louis Armstrong Stadium. The 32-year-old French woman, ranked 40th in the world, drew on all her experience to outfox the 19-year-old Radukanu, boldly pulling off a string of exquisite drop shots at key moments to set up the victory. Radukanu had been the darling of the Flushing Meadows crowd last year when she made history by emerging from qualifying to claim a fairy tale maiden Grand Slam. That win marked the first time ever a qualifier had lifted a Grand Slam title.
Mexican woman whose links to drug traffickers earned her the nickname Queen of the Pacific is demanding compensation from Netflix for an award-winning show that she says is based on her life. Sandra Avila Beltran has filed a claim with Mexico's intellectual property agency alleging that the character Teresa Mendoza in La Reina del Sur is inspired by her own story. Beltran's lawyer, Israel Razo, told Milenio TV that Beltran wants 40% of the royalties from Netflix and Spanish-language television network Telemundo because living with the nickname of a drug trafficker is difficult. In response, Netflix and Telemundo argued that Avila Beltran's life is a matter of public interest, so there are no grounds for a complaint. Beltran was first arrested in Mexico City in 2007, extradited to the United States to face accusations of conspiring to import cocaine in 2012, and deported back to Mexico in 2013 due to a plea bargain he did for his boyfriend, Juan Diego Espinosa, being an accomplice for the drug trade. Avila Beltran was released in 2015 after a Mexican judge ruled that she could not be tried twice for the same crime. Meanwhile, La Reina del Sur is based on a novel of the same name by Spanish writer Arturo Pérez Reverte about a Mexican woman with links to drug lords.
The Asean Excellence Achievers Awards 2022 recognizes Net25 and two of its programs, Kada Umaga and Mata ng Agila Primetime, for their outstanding contributions amid the challenges of the global pandemic. Nadine Aguilar reports.
Net25 has bagged the Outstanding TV Station of the Year at Asean Excellence Achievers Awards 2022. Asean Excellence Achievers Awards President Ms. Benelin Amigo Molina said Net25 is commended for its commitment to soar high above the challenges of the global pandemic. Molina added that Net25 inspired people with boldness in delivering relevant programs to families and youth in these trying times. Asean Excellence Achievers Awards also recognized two of Net25's programs for its exemplary contributions in the field of TV production and broadcasting. Its morning show Kada Umaga won the Phenomenal Morning TV Show of the Year, which airs Mondays to Fridays from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning, hosted by Pia Guanyo Mago, Tony Petgaba, Emma Tiglao, Maureen Shrichvers, and Wedge Kudyamat. Net25's primetime news program, Mata ng Agila, was named the Outstanding Evening News Program of the Year, which airs Mondays to Fridays from 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. and anchored by seasoned broadcasters Alex Santos and Vic De Leon Lima with Emma Tiglao. The Asean Excellence Achievers Award salutes remarkable CEOs, celebrities, companies, and brands for their work and achievements. Nadine Aguilar, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
What happened on this day in history, August 31? Let's take a look back. In 1907, Ramon Magsaysay Sr. was born. Magsaysay Sr. is the 7th president of the Philippines. Magsaysay's administration is often cited as the Philippines' golden years. In 1957, Malaysia achieved its independence. Malaysia has its origins in the Malay kingdoms, which, from the 18th century, became subject to the British Empire. And in 1997, Diana, Princess of Wales, died when the driver of her car lost control while speeding away from paparazzi and crashed in a road tunnel in Paris, France.
Now, to help you go through the week, here's a quote from Albert Einstein, a German-born theoretical physicist. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. But it takes a certain maturity to recognize the silver lining.
Yeah, that's true. But always believe that there's something there.
There is something there.
There is.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Richie Alago Flores. Please tune in to Attorney Salvador Panelo's interview with Senator Robin Hood Padilla in Counterpoint here on Net 25. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.